This big guy at a bar thought I couldn't defend my girl because I'm disabled. He messed with the wrong wheelchair rugby player. I was having a beer at my local bar after wheelchair rugby practice, still wearing my team jersey under my jacket, when this drunk guy decided I was going to be his entertainment for the night. I'd been chatting with this girl I'd just met, Chloe, about the upcoming tournament, when this guy inserted himself between us, using his body to push my chair back from where we were sitting. "Let me get in here, buddy," he said, not even looking at me. "You're taking up too much space with that thing." He turned to Chloe and said loudly, "Why are you wasting your time talking to him? This is a bar, not a hospital. He probably can't even hold his drink properly." When Chloe tried to continue our conversation, he laughed. "What's the point of giving him alcohol? Not like he can feel anything anyway." I stayed exactly where I was, taking another sip of my beer and maintaining eye contact with him. "Not going anywhere. Wheels? Oh wait. You can't go anywhere without help," he said, grabbing my chair handles without permission and yanking me backward roughly. "See, you need a real man to push you around. Probably how you live your whole life, right? Someone else doing everything for you." He spun my chair in a circle, making me dizzy. "Like a little baby stroller. Bet you can't even piss by yourself. You got one of those bags?" He actually reached down toward my leg like he was going to check. When I politely asked him to leave me alone, he got louder. "Oh, he speaks. Thought maybe you were awarded too. Usually goes together, right?" He crouched down to my eye level like I was a child. "You understand me, okay, buddy? Should I talk slower? You probably live in some care home where they feed you mush and change your diapers." He made exaggerated baby talk sounds. "Does Whittle baby need his baba?" Chloe told him to stop being an asshole, but that made him worse. "Why? You feel sorry for him? That's the only way he gets female attention. Pity." He turned back to me. "You ever been laid, Wheels? Who would want to screw a broken body? Even prostitutes would charge you extra for the trauma." He started humping the air. "This is what you'll never do again. Or maybe you never could. Your pee-pee probably doesn't even work. Just dead meat like the rest of you." I stayed calm and tried to enjoy my beer, but he knocked it out of my hand, glass shattering on the floor. "Oops, guess you can't clean that up either. Need someone to do everything for you like a baby." He poured his own beer over my head. "There, now you smell like piss to match your diaper. Assuming you can even smell. What actually works on you?" He flicked my ear hard. "Can you feel that? What about this?" He pinched my arm, twisting the skin. Chloe stood up to get help, but he blocked her. "Don't waste your time. He's not a real person. Probably gets disability checks from our taxes. I'm literally paying for this parasite to exist." He looked at me with genuine disgust. "You should have died in whatever made you like this. Would have been better for everyone. Natural selection exists for a reason. We're supposed to let the weak die off, not waste resources keeping them alive." When I still didn't respond, he grabbed my wallet from my jacket pocket. "Let's see how much of my tax money you get." He pulled out my cash and pocketed it. "Consider this a refund for keeping you alive." He found a photo of me and my brother at his wedding where I was standing before my accident and laughed cruelly. "Holy crap, you used to be a real person. That makes this even more pathetic. I'd end myself if I ended up like you. Why didn't you?" He ripped up the photo. Chloe tried to leave and he grabbed her arm. "Where are you going? Don't leave me with the vegetable." When she tried to pull away, he tightened his grip. "What? You actually feel bad for this thing? Maybe you want to take him home. See what doesn't work?" She told him to let go and he pushed her against the bar. "Or maybe you're into cripples. That's it, right? You get off on broken bodies?" His grip left red marks on her arm. When she tried to push past him, he slammed her back harder, his hand going to her throat. "Don't you walk away from me. I'm trying to educate you about these parasites." His fingers squeezed and she made a choking sound. Real fear in her eyes as she clawed at his hand. "See, Wheels, this is what a real man can do. I can take whatever I want while you just sit there useless. Watch me take your girl and know you can't do anything about it." That's when I locked my wheels, planted my hands on my armrests, and prepared to show him exactly what 6 years of Paralympic training and rage could do. I pushed off my armrests with everything I had and launched my chair forward like a battering ram. The metal footplate connected with his shins at full speed and he let out this awful scream that cut through the bar noise. His hands came off Chloe's throat instantly as he stumbled backward, trying to catch himself on anything nearby. The impact sent shockwaves up through my chair frame and into my arms, but I didn't care because Chloe was free and gasping for air. His face went from cruel confidence to complete shock as he realized what just happened. I used my forward momentum to keep going, reaching out and grabbing his right wrist as he tried to take a wild swing at my head. He was drunk and off balance from the shin hit, so when I yanked his arm forward while backing my chair up fast, his whole body followed. He crashed sideways into the nearest table and went flying everywhere, beer and mixed drinks splashing across the floor. The table tipped over completely and he went down with it, landing hard in all the broken glass and spilled alcohol. I backed my chair up quick to get some distance between us, my wheels sliding a little on the wet floor but my grip staying solid. Chloe had scrambled away from the bar and was pressed against the far wall, one hand on her throat as she coughed and tried to get her breathing back to normal. The whole bar had gone dead quiet except for the drunk guy cursing and trying to get up from the mess of broken glass and overturned furniture. People had their phones out recording everything now. The overhead lights suddenly blazed on at full brightness and Luke Bentley came rushing over from the back office. "What the hell is going on here?" he yelled, then saw the drunk guy on the floor and Chloe holding her throat. "Someone call 911 right now." Two big guys who'd been playing pool came over and stood between me and the drunk guy when he tried to lunge at me again, one of them putting a hand on his chest and pushing him back down. "Stay down, man," the pool player said. "You're done here." The drunk guy was trying to get glass out of his palms and kept slipping in the spilled drinks. My hands were shaking bad from the adrenaline dump but I kept them steady on my wheel rims, ready to move fast if he somehow got past the two guys blocking him. The drunk guy started yelling that I attacked him out of nowhere, that I was crazy, that he was just trying to have a conversation and I went psycho on him. "He ran me down with that thing," he kept saying, pointing at my chair. "This cripple tried to kill me." Nobody was buying it though because half the bar had seen him choking Chloe. Her voice came out rough and scratchy but Chloe immediately started telling Luke what really happened. "He's been harassing us for 20 minutes, she said, pointing at the red finger marks already showing on her neck. "He grabbed me and choked me when I tried to leave." She had to stop and cough between sentences. The bartender came around from behind the bar with a towel for the drunk guy's bleeding hands. "I saw the whole thing, Luke," he said. "This guy was way out of line and I was about to come over when the kid defended the girl. He looked at me with something like respect. That was some serious reaction time." Police sirens were already getting closer and within maybe 3 minutes 2 officers came through the door. The female officer came straight to me while her partner went to deal with the drunk guy who was still on the floor complaining about his shins and hands. "I'm Officer Garza," she said, pulling out a notepad. "Can you tell me what happened here?" I kept my voice as steady as I could even though my chest was still pounding and explained everything from the beginning. How he'd pushed my chair, spun me around, dumped beer on me, stolen my money, destroyed my photo and then attacked Chloe when she tried to leave. Officer Garza was riding fast and looking at me closer as I talked. She noticed the beer still dripping from my hair and down my jacket. "Do you want to press charges for assault?" she asked. "He physically assaulted you multiple times from what you're describing." I told her about the cash he took from my wallet and showed her the bruises already turning purple on my arm where he'd grabbed and twisted. "He also destroyed a photo of me and my brother that can't be replaced," I said. "The pieces were probably still on the floor somewhere." The bartender came over to Officer Garza while her partner was putting cuffs on the drunk guy. "We have security cameras that caught everything," he said. "The whole thing is on video from multiple angles." Luke was already pulling up the footage on his phone and his face got darker and angrier as he watched what had been happening before he'd noticed the fight. "Jesus Christ," he said, showing the phone to Officer Garza. "This is way worse than I thought." On the screen you could see the drunk guy yanking my chair around, pouring beer on me and then clear as day putting his hands on Chloe's throat. My wrist was starting to throb bad where I'd twisted it on impact with the drunk guy's shins. I tried to rotate it and winced at the sharp pain that shot up my arm. I must have hurt it worse than I thought when I hit him. Officer Garza noticed me holding my wrist and called for medical to come check both Chloe and me. "We need to document any injuries for the report," she said, then looked over at her who had the drunk guy sitting against the wall in handcuffs. "And we're definitely taking him in for multiple charges including assault and battery." The drunk guy started yelling that I was making everything up while her partner patted him down and pulled my crumpled cash from his front pocket along with his wallet that had a driver's license showing his name was Derek Paulson. He kept changing his story every 30 seconds, first saying we were friends just messing around, then claiming I started it, then saying he was just trying to help me and I attacked him for no reason. The EMTs arrived and went straight to Chloe who was still holding the bar's ice pack against her throat, but she waved off getting in the ambulance and told them she just needed to her statement first. Her voice was still scratchy when she told Officer Garza she'd seen this same guy here at least 3 other times in the past month bothering different people, pushing boundaries, getting aggressive, when anyone told him no, but this was the first time she'd seen him get physically violent like this. Luke came over looking sick about the whole thing and told Derek he was permanently banned from the bar, no exceptions, no second chances, and if he ever saw him within 50 feet of the place he'd call the cops immediately. He kept apologizing to both of us, saying he should have noticed sooner, should have stepped in before it got that bad, and promised he'd email me the complete security footage tonight, plus give Officer Garza a copy on a flash drive right now. The bartender was already behind the bar's computer downloading the video files while Luke filled out some kind of incident report form on his phone. Officer Garza finished writing everything down and explained that Derek would be booked tonight on assault, battery, and theft charges, and she handed both Chloe and me business cards with case numbers written on the back, saying a detective would probably call within 48 hours to follow up. Derek was still complaining loudly about police brutality and false arrest as they hauled him out to the patrol car, his shins apparently hurting bad enough that he was limping and needed help walking. The bar had cleared out by then, except for a few regulars who'd stuck around to make sure we were okay, and one older guy came over to shake my hand and tell me that was the most badass thing he'd seen in 20 years of coming here. My wrist was getting worse by the minute, swelling up and turning purple where I'd twisted it on impact, and when Chloe noticed me struggling to grip my wheel rims properly, she offered to drive me to urgent care since there was no way I could push myself safely with one hand. I accepted immediately, grateful not just for the ride but for her steady presence after everything that just happened, and she helped me transfer into her car while Luke and another regular folded my chair and put it in her trunk. The urgent care waiting room was mostly empty at 1030 on a Thursday night, and they got me back for x-rays within 20 minutes, where the tech had to help position my wrist different ways because I couldn't rotate it myself without serious pain shooting up my whole arm. The doctor came in with the images on a tablet showing no fracture but definite ligament damage, what she called a grade 2 sprain that would need complete rest for at least 2 weeks minimum. She wrapped it in a compression bandage, gave me a prescription for stronger pain meds than the ibuprofen I'd been taking, and typed up detailed notes about the injury for the police report while telling me to follow up with my regular doctor in a few days. Back in the car, I pulled out my phone to text Natasha about missing tomorrow's practice and probably having limited playing time at the tournament next month, and she called me immediately, her voice going from worried to absolutely furious as I explained what happened. She wanted to know if I needed anything, if she should come over, if the team should do something about this Derek guy, and I had to talk her down from organizing some kind of vigilante wheelchair rugby squad to go find him. When I finally got home around midnight, I took the pain medication but still couldn't sleep, just laying there replaying every second, and wondering if I should have acted sooner when he first touched Chloe, or if there was some way I could have de-escalated before it got violent, even though I knew logically he gave me no choice. My wrist throbbed with every heartbeat despite the medication, this constant painful reminder that I'd had to hurt someone to protect someone else, something I'd never done in 6 years of competitive rugby where contact was controlled and consensual. The next morning I woke up to an email from Luke with a zip file containing 4 different camera angles of the entire incident, plus a formal written incident report he'd filed with both his insurance company and some kind of bar industry safety board. Watching the footage was surreal and way more disturbing than living through it because you could see everything clearly, how calculated Derek's escalation was, how he kept checking to make sure Luke wasn't watching, how Chloe's face went from annoyed, to scared, to terrified when his hand went to her throat. Around noon Chloe texted asking how I was doing and if I wanted to meet for coffee to talk through what happened, and we ended up at this quiet place downtown where we sat with our drinks getting cold while we tried to process the trauma of it all. She showed me the bruises on her neck that had turned dark purple overnight, these clear finger marks that made my stomach turn, and we talked about how neither of us had seen violence like that coming from what started as typical drunk guy harassment that happens at bars all the time. My phone rang the next afternoon while I was icing my wrist on the couch. Detective Williams introduced himself and explained that Derek Paulson was charged with multiple counts including felony assault for choking Chloe. He went through the charges one by one including assault, battery, theft, and hate crime enhancements for targeting me because of my disability. The video evidence from Luke's cameras showed everything clearly and he asked if I'd be willing to testify if it went to trial. I told him yes without hesitation, even though the thought of seeing Derek again made my stomach turn. He gave me a victim advocate number and said someone named Jimena Cardenas would help me through the process. After we hung up I stared at the number for a while before finally calling. Jimena answered on the second ring and spent 40 minutes explaining what would happen next. She walked me through the legal timeline, how plea deals worked, what my rights were as a victim, and what resources were available for dealing with trauma. She had this calm way of talking that made the whole scary process seem more manageable. She emailed me a packet of information including therapist referrals who specialized in assault victims and a checklist of things to document for court. I spent the rest of the day reading through everything and taking photos of my bruised wrist from different angles. That evening I finally worked up the nerve to call my brother and tell him what happened. He went quiet when I got to the part about Derek ripping up the wedding photo. Then he started swearing and asking if I was okay and if he needed to drive down right now. I could hear him pacing around his kitchen, the floor creaking with each angry step. He promised to send another copy of the photo from his wedding album overnight and kept asking if I needed him to come stay with me. I told him I was fine, but he made me promise to call if that changed. 2 days later my phone started blowing up with notifications while I was doing wrist exercises. Someone had posted a clip of the bar incident on social media after getting it from another patron who'd filmed it. The video was shaky but you could clearly see Derek choking Chloe and me ramming into his legs. Most comments were supportive, people calling Derek trash and saying he got what he deserved. But some trolls made jokes about wheelchair fights and cripple combat that made me want to throw my phone across the room. One guy wrote a whole paragraph about how I should have just rolled away instead of escalating things. Another said Derek was probably drunk and didn't mean it, so I overreacted. I stopped reading after someone commented that they'd pay to watch more disabled people fight for entertainment. That night I woke up at 3 a.m., feeling Derek's hands on my chair handles again. My sheets were soaked with sweat and my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I could still feel him spinning me in circles and hear his voice calling me Wheels. I got up and checked that my chair was locked 3 times before I could calm down. I moved it right next to my bed where I could see it and touch it if I needed to. I didn't sleep the noise outside. 3 days later I went back to practice for the first time since the incident. Coach Arlo took one look at my wrapped wrist and pulled me aside before warm-ups. He modified my entire training plan on the spot, focusing on defensive positioning that wouldn't strain my wrist. The whole team had heard what happened and they were mad about it. Jake kept offering to find Derek's address and pay him a visit. Ryzen said he'd come to court with me for support if I needed it. Even Quiet Sam told me he'd testify as a character witness if it would help. We ran drills but I could only use my left hand effectively, which threw off my whole game. Coach had me work on blocking lanes and using my chair position to cut off opponents instead of my usual aggressive style. My wrist throbbed every time I forgot and tried to use it normally. After practice, Natasha drove me home and we sat in my driveway while she ranted about Derek and the whole messed up situation. The next morning, Officer Garza called to tell me Derek's attorney Frank Matlock was trying to negotiate. He wanted to drop the charges in exchange for a public apology and paying back the money Derek stole. I told her absolutely not, because an apology meant nothing without real consequences for what he did. She said she expected that answer, but had to ask, and that the prosecutor was moving forward regardless. Matlock kept pushing for a deal, but the video evidence was too strong for him to have much leverage. That weekend Luke called to tell me about the new security measures at the bar. He'd hired a dedicated staff member whose only job was watching for harassment and discrimination. He installed panic buttons behind the bar and in the bathrooms that would alert security immediately. He'd also posted signs everywhere about zero tolerance for assault and discrimination, with a number to text for help. He sounded genuinely upset about what happened, and kept apologizing even though I told him it wasn't his fault. Chloe texted me that afternoon saying she'd decided to file her own report about Derek. She'd found out from the detective that he had multiple harassment complaints from other bars. We started texting back and forth about the legal stuff, supporting each other through the confusing process. She was nervous about testifying but determined to make sure Derek faced consequences. 2 weeks after the incident my wrist still hurt constantly and wasn't improving like it should. My doctor did more x-rays and referred me to a physical therapist who specialized in sports injuries. The tournament was in 2 weeks and I had to accept that I wouldn't be playing at full strength. The therapist gave me exercises to do 3 times a day, but warned me it could take months to fully heal. My whole team strategy would have to change because of one drunk jerk who couldn't leave people alone. Jimena Cardenas met me at the courthouse annex the next week with a thick folder and a laptop. She had me sit at a conference table while she pulled up forms on her computer. The victim impact statement template looked simple, but writing the actual words made my hands shake. I typed about how Derek's assault affected my daily life and my ability to compete. Every sentence brought back the feeling of beer dripping down my face and his hands on my chair. Jimena kept pushing me to include more details about the emotional impact and the physical injury. I wrote about the nightmares and the constant checking of my chair position at night. She helped me organize it into sections about physical harm, emotional trauma, and financial losses. The whole process took 3 hours and left me exhausted and angry all over again. 2 days later the district attorney's office called while I was doing my physical therapy exercises. The prosecutor explained that Derek's lawyer wanted to negotiate a plea deal to avoid trial. Derek would plead guilty to reduced charges but still serve jail time and pay restitution. She wanted my input before making any decisions about accepting or rejecting the offer. I told her I needed time to think about it and talk to Chloe first. That night someone created a fake Instagram account and started sending me threatening messages. The messages called me a liar and said I deserved what happened at the bar. They included details only someone who knew Derek would have, like his favorite beer brand. I screenshot every message before blocking the account and forwarded everything to Detective Williams. She called me back within an hour saying she'd already started tracing the IP address. The next morning she confirmed it came from one of Derek's drinking buddies named Tyler. She was adding witness intimidation charges to the case file and would arrest Tyler that afternoon. At practice that week, Coach Arlo completely changed our defensive strategy to work around my injury. We ran formations where I could use positioning and my chair to block without needing quick wrist movements. Natasha took over my usual spot on offense while I focused on cutting off passing lanes. The team adapted quickly, but I could tell they were worried about the tournament. Jake kept asking if I was sure I could play, and Ryzen offered to teach me his defensive techniques. We practiced the new formations over and over until they became automatic. 3 weeks after the bar incident, the preliminary hearing finally happened at the downtown courthouse. I wore my only suit and arrived early with Chloe, who was also testifying. Derek sat at the defense table in a cheap gray suit, looking smaller and paler than I remembered. When he glanced my way, my whole body tensed and my good hand gripped my wheel. The prosecutor played the bar's security footage and both Chloe and I testified about what happened. Derek's lawyer tried to argue it was just drunken behavior, but the video was too clear. The judge bound the case over for trial and maintained Derek's bail conditions. After the hearing, Jimena pulled Chloe and me aside to discuss the plea offer again. The deal was 60 days in county jail, 2 years probation, and full restitution for damages. Derek would have to plead guilty to assault and battery charges in open court. It wasn't the years in prison I wanted, but it meant avoiding a long trial. Chloe said she just wanted it over and didn't want to testify again if possible. I thought about missing more practices for court dates and agreed to accept the deal. Jimena called the prosecutor right there to confirm we were both on board. The plea hearing happened 2 weeks later and lasted only 20 minutes. Derek had to stand and admit guilt to each charge while the judge questioned him. He mumbled his answers but had to say clearly that he assaulted both Chloe and me. The judge accepted the plea and issued a permanent restraining order for both of us. Derek would start his jail sentence immediately and couldn't come within 500 feet of us ever again. Watching the bailiff cuff him and lead him away felt better than I expected. Tournament weekend arrived faster than I wanted, with my wrist still weak and sore. Coach Arlo limited my playing time to 10-minute stretches, focusing entirely on defense. I watched from the sideline as Natasha ran plays I usually led. When I did play, I used my chair and left arm to block while protecting my right wrist. The other teams quickly figured out my weakness and tried to exploit it. Our first game was rough, but we adjusted and won by 3 points. The semifinals were harder and I could only play 6 minutes before the pain got too bad. My teammates covered for me and we scraped through to the bronze medal game. That match was brutal and went to overtime, but my defensive blocks in the final minutes helped secure 3rd place. When they handed me the trophy, it felt heavier than usual in my tender hands. My teammates kept telling me my defense was crucial and we couldn't have placed without me. Jake said my blocks were the best he'd ever seen and Ryzen called me our defensive wall. The recognition helped, but I knew we could have won gold if I'd been at full strength. The next week I sat with Luke at the bar during a quiet afternoon to file the restitution paperwork. I listed the stolen cash amount and included the receipt for a replacement wedding photo. Luke confirmed in writing that the bar wouldn't seek damages for the broken glasses and furniture. He also showed me the new panic button system he'd installed under the bar and in the bathrooms. The buttons would alert security and automatically save camera footage from the previous 10 minutes. He'd also hired 2 new security staff specifically trained in disability awareness and de-escalation. 2 weeks after that meeting with Luke, Chloe texted asking if I wanted to go back to the bar with her. I wasn't sure at first, but she said we needed to reclaim the space for ourselves. We went on a Tuesday afternoon when it would be quiet and less crowded. Luke saw us come in and immediately walked over to greet us personally. He showed us around the renovations he'd made since the incident. There were new panic buttons installed behind the bar and in both bathrooms. He pressed one to demonstrate and immediately a security guard appeared from the back room. The buttons would save the last 10 minutes of camera footage automatically when pressed. Luke also pointed out the new signs posted about zero tolerance for harassment and discrimination. He comped our drinks and stayed to chat for a few minutes before heading back to his office. Chloe and I sat at a different table than that night, but we could both see where it happened. We didn't talk about it much, but just being there together felt like taking back some control. That night after practice I was completely exhausted from the extra defensive drills coach had us running. I crashed into bed without even eating dinner. And for the first time in weeks I slept straight through until morning. No nightmares about hands on my chair or Chloe's scared face. My body was finally remembering that I was strong and capable of defending myself and others. The intense physical training was helping me process the trauma better than any talking could. 3 days later a package arrived from my brother with a note saying he was proud of me for standing up to that bully. Inside was a beautiful wooden frame with a new copy of our wedding photo perfectly centered. He'd had it professionally restored from his negatives and it looked even better than the original. I hung it on my bedroom wall where I could see it every morning when I woke up. It reminded me of who I was before the accident and who I still am now. Officer Garza called me the following week to update me on Derek's status in jail. He was serving his full 60 days with no early release for good behavior. She said he'd been banned from every bar in the downtown area as part of his probation terms. She told me Chloe and I had done everything right by following through with charges. She said most people don't pursue justice and let these predators keep hurting others. Her words helped but didn't erase the anger I still felt about the light sentence. Over the next few weeks, Chloe and I developed a real friendship beyond just trauma bonding. We texted regularly about normal stuff like movies and food recommendations. Sometimes we'd grab coffee after my practice or her work shifts. We were careful not to let that night define our entire connection. She was funny and smart, and we had more in common than just surviving violence together. We both loved true crime podcasts and bad reality TV shows. She came to one of my rugby games and cheered louder than anyone when I made a good defensive play. I started volunteering with a new player training program at our rugby club. Coach Arlo asked if I'd help teach situational awareness along with game skills. I showed them how to use their chairs defensively and how to protect themselves off the court too. My experience became a teaching tool without having to share all the ugly details. The new players picked up the techniques quickly and seemed to appreciate learning from someone who'd actually used them. Several asked for extra practice sessions, and I was happy to help them build confidence. 6 weeks after the bar incident, I went to my doctor for a final check on my wrist. The x-rays showed complete healing and she cleared me for full contact sports again. I carefully removed the brace in her office and tested my range of motion. There was still some soreness when I rotated it certain ways, but nothing that would limit my playing. That afternoon at practice, I participated in full contact drills for the first time in over a month. My teammates cheered when I blocked Ryzen's strongest shot with both hands working together. The strength was coming back faster than expected and my grip felt solid again. Looking back now, I know I didn't get the perfect justice I wanted for what happened. Derek only served 2 months and probably didn't learn much from it. But I got something real instead of a Hollywood ending. I proved my years of training made me capable of protecting someone when it mattered. A predator faced actual accountability even if it wasn't enough. My community showed up to support both Chloe and me through the whole process. The bar made real changes to protect future customers. I helped train other disabled athletes to defend themselves. Most importantly, I remembered that my disability doesn't make me weak or helpless. Well, that's going to do it for me today. Appreciate you hanging out and questioning things right along with me. Always feels like a real journey when we share it together. Subscribe for more content like this.